2. At the palace. Then Prince Bodhi, after the night had passed, having had excellent foodstuffs made ready in his own residence, and after covering the pink lotus palace with white cloth up to the last step, addressed the student Sanjikarputta, saying, "Go, dear Sanjikarputta, and approach the Gracious One." And after approaching, announced the time to the Gracious One, saying, "It is time, dear Gautama, the meal is ready." "Very well, dear sirs," said the student Sanjikarputta, and after replying to Prince Bodhi, he approached the Gracious One. And after approaching, he announced the time to the Gracious One, saying, "It is time, dear Gautama, the meal is ready." Then the Gracious One, after dressing in the morning time, and picking up his bowl and robe, approached Prince Bodhi's residence. Then at that time Prince Bodhi was standing outside the doorway, waiting for the Gracious One. Prince Bodhi saw the Gracious One approaching from afar, and after seeing him and coming out, worshipping and putting the Gracious One in front, he approached the pink lotus palace. Then the Gracious One stood near the last step on the staircase. Then Prince Bodhi said this to the Gracious One, "May the Gracious One ascend the cloth, Reverend Sir. May the Fortunate One ascend the cloth. That for a long time will be for my benefit and happiness." When this was said, the Gracious One remained silent. Then for a second time Prince Bodhi said this to the Gracious One, "May the Gracious One ascend the cloth, Reverend Sir. May the Fortunate One ascend the cloth. That for a long time will be for my benefit and happiness." Then for a second time the Gracious One remained silent. Then for a third time Prince Bodhi said this to the Gracious One, "May the Gracious One ascend the cloth, Reverend Sir. May the Fortunate One ascend the cloth. That for a long time will be for my benefit and happiness." Then the Gracious One looked at Venerable Ānanda. Then Venerable Ānanda said this to Prince Bodhi, "Fold up the cloth, Prince. The Gracious One does not walk on cloth coverings. The realized one looks to people in the future." Then Prince Bodhi, after folding up the cloth, prepared the seats on the pink lotus palace. Then the Gracious One, having ascended the pink lotus palace, sat down on the prepared seat, together with the community of monks. Then Prince Bodhi served and satisfied with his own hand a community of monks with the Buddha at its head, with excellent food and drinks. Then Prince Bodhi, when the Gracious One had eaten and washed his hand and bowl, after taking a low seat, sat down on one side. While seated on one side, Prince Bodhi said this to the Gracious One, "Reverend Sir, this occurred to me. Happiness is not gained through pleasure. Happiness is only gained through pain. To me also, Prince, before the awakening, while still an unawakened Bodhisattva, this thought occurred. Happiness is not gained through pleasure. Happiness is only gained through pain.